We now shift focus and we're going to hear a view coming in from Bharat Forge's Amit Kalyani as well as McKinsey's Asia's Gautam Kumra on the impact of Trump 2.0 and what's ahead, and this is coming straight from the World Economic Forum at Davos.
He's talked about a lot of things that can be very positive for the global economy. The first thing is about getting the geopolitical issues under control. So he's talked about getting Ukraine-Russia resolved. He's talked about, getting the Israel issue under control. I think those two will be a big mood booster for the whole world and reduce a lot of stress in the overall system. I think especially the Russia-Ukraine war will then, the end of that will then normalize the economic situation for a lot of European countries which depend on Russian oil and gas. Secondly, the whole focus on rebuild America, putting infrastructure back in America, focusing on building high quality infrastructure, playing catch up on the hard physical infrastructure, whether it's airports, whether it's better roads, bridges, power. He's talked about bringing a lot of power back into the US because of AI needing huge amounts of power for the data storage. So all these are, infrastructure-led growth, which is going to have a compounding effect on the entire economy. And then when you talk about bringing manufacturing back, it plays very well with that, because if you're going to build infrastructure and you build it with made in America goods, it creates a very positive boost for the overall US economy. And when the US does well, the whole world does well. So that's one part of it. The second part of it is what you talked about of the tariffs. I think, we have to wait and watch, but there are going to be tariffs on multiple geographies. Obviously, we have to see what happens with China tariffs, what happens with us and others. But, we have plants in the US, we have plants in India where we produce, so we have to wait and watch. I'm actually very hopeful and watching and waiting to see what happens in India, because we clearly need something that is going to give a boost to our economy. Our economy is not growing at the pace which we need it to grow at.
Right.
And clearly the manufacturing sector is not, because the demand levels are not there. So there is opportunity if you can encash moving of manufacturing either through China Plus One or Europe moving manufacturing in a very focused manner. Like I saw some of the states in India have made a very focused pitch. They have a very good pitch book. They know what the customer wants and they are able to pitch that to them. So it's kudos to them. And if they're able to do that, I think it's going to be good for India, because at the end of the day, we need to create employment for 5, 6, 700,000 people per month, close to 1 million people per month. And, otherwise we're falling behind. So that's the two things that I think one needs to watch out for.
Okay, all my subsequent questions are follow-ups to this answer that you've given.
Okay.
So I'm going to try and write them out one by one. I just want to get the Trump thing out of the way.
Okay.
So because of that piece that you spoke about, that the US economy might do well because he wants it to do well, but there are tariffs as well. Is Amit Kalyani seeing the glass half full because of the business that comes in out of the US and you have direct and indirect exposure both? Or are you worried, Amit Kalyani, because of what tariffs could do to an exporting powerhouse like yours?
No, I think tariffs will also have to be managed by the US to prevent inflation. Okay?
Sure.
You can't have crazy tariffs because those will lead to massive inflation. So I'm hopeful that, with the kind of people that he has in his government and, him being a businessman first and foremost, he has the knowledge of how these things work. And yes, there may be tariffs, there will be tariffs, but I think they'll be measured and controlled. So I'm not overtly concerned because it affects everyone. It doesn't just affect us. So that's not so much of a concern.
Okay. The opportunity because of a buoyant US economy.
The opportunity of a buoyant American market is very great.
Okay. And you are looking forward to that. Okay. Two questions. One, the world somewhere around June or July 2024 was looking forward to a year of lower interest rates in the US and other countries following suit. Now, if tariffs come in and if it's mildly inflationary or reasonably inflationary, rates might not come down there. Can the Indian policy be divergent to the US Fed policy because of our idiosyncratic factors?
One of the most concerning factors right now is the amount of freebies being doled out by state governments. And quite frankly, I don't know how our states can afford that. Especially in a low to medium growth scenario. And with that in place, I don't know how much room there will be to play with interest rates.
Okay.
So that is fairly concerning. But Indian interest rates for good companies are not too high. Yeah, okay. They're not 6% or 5%, but they're 8.5%.
Okay. So you will tide through much better. Okay. That is part one. Part two is the very point that you spoke about in terms of growth. Now, the ever elusive private capex, with reason not coming forth. Do you reckon in the near term or even the medium term, the government will have to do the heavy lifting because private sector will not dole out capex just because it is expected to? There should be an opportunity to do.
There has to be a stimulus. There has to be a reason to spend money. One of the concerns again that I have is that a lot of the PLI schemes that have been put out by the government are very well meaning,
right?
But their impact will be seen 5 to 10 years from now. If you look at the semiconductor, the batteries, those impacts are not going to be seen in 1 year, 2 years, 3 years. I'm not saying we need PLI, but we need something that spurs demand and therefore creates the need to expand capacity.
No, it's certainly going to be an interesting year, and I think